أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه ثم أما بعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we are so blessed to have our dear brother Dr. Ma'an Alqudah with us within like three weeks, or within 3 weeks. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. So, and the lecture tonight, of course, most of it, I assume that it's going to be Q&A questions, is about all what American Muslims need to know about az-zakah. So az-zakah, we know that it's one of the pillars of Islam, and it's like a salah, like a siyam, like any of the pillars of Islam. And as we are obliged to learn about as-salah, to perform salah correctly, to learn about as-siyam, especially every year after, before the month of Ramadan, we do like a seminar about fasting and all that stuff. Also, az-zakah, we need to know, we need to learn what or everything related to az-zakah, about the nisab, about the time, about everything. And az-zakah, especially, for us as Muslims living in America, in the West in general, there are some specific things that might not apply on Muslims living, in the Muslim majority countries. So this is exactly what, we need to know. And I know that especially by the beginning of Ramadan, a lot of members of the community start asking a lot of questions, because many people choose the month of Ramadan as the time, the annual time to give their zakah. So they ask a lot of questions. So tonight is a great opportunity to learn whatever we need to learn, so we can exercise and practice this pillar of Islam in the right way. So we do have people also watching, live, and those who are on the ICSD WhatsApp group, they have received a link from where they can send or text their questions. So I already received some questions, but if you have any question and you are watching live, you can send your question, text your question, and inshallah, Dr. Ma'an Alqudah will answer it. Without any further ado, تفضل شيخنا. بارك الله فيك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم نور قلوبنا بالعلم وزين أخلاقنا بالحلم وافتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين ثم أما بعد. I'm really glad to see you again within 3 weeks. جزاكم الله خير for your generosity and your support and your self-motivation to be here and to support the noble cause of Guidance College when I was here 3 weeks ago. جزاكم الله خير. I really appreciate it. Our topic for tonight is all about zakah for American Muslims. Of course, there are a lot of like classical, traditional information that we all know. However, we'll focus tonight, inshallah, on whatever is related to us Muslims in the West. Let's go just briefly with fundamental rules of zakah. As the Sheikh said in the introduction, that the majority of us mark their calendar for the beginning of the month of Ramadan to pay zakatul mal. So that is the zakah due date. That is the zakah due date. You wait for one complete year, for one fiscal lunar year, and every year in the month of Ramadan, you mark your calendar to start calculating and paying zakatul mal. The first rule that we need to remember here is that zakah is to be calculated based on the remaining income, not based on the total income. Zakah is to be calculated based on the remaining income, not based on the total income. When you start doing your math to pay tax to the government, you start the math with the annual income that you have made in 2022. Is that correct? Let's say, for example, you made 150,000. You report the 150,000, and then, of course, there are a lot of like deductions based on the number of family members, based on if you have mortgage or some other deductible payments that you make. When it comes to zakatul mal, if you already made $150,000 and in the month of Ramadan, you found out that whatever available, accessible to you is only 50,000. So the extra $100,000 already spent within the whole year, like throughout the whole year long. Then you start your math, you start your zakah calculation with the 50,000, not with the 150. So we do not care about how much you made throughout the whole year long. What we care about is the remaining income. The second thing, we need to identify what is called the zakatable wealth versus the non-zakatable wealth. Zakatable wealth means every single kind of property or assets or money, okay, or anything that has a value that should be included in your zakah calculation. Non-zakatable wealth, anything that has to be excluded. It is not to be counted toward calculating zakatul mal. And the very first category that's common between all of us here is the money that you have or the cash money that you have. Whether that money is cash in hand, on your pocket, at home, in the checking account, in the saving account, in the money market account, stimulus check that you received from the government, unemployment benefit, you applied for PPP like during the pandemic, whatever the source of money might be. Money that you have received, money that you own, right? Money that is accessible, available in the zakat due date, that is to be included and not to be excluded. And regardless of the reason behind holding the money. If you have that money for investment purposes, that's included. You have that money for spending purposes, that to be included. You are saving the money for whatever purpose might be. You have some cash money waiting to be like paid for the tuition fees of your kids, or to perform Hajj, for example, or to purchase a car, or to buy a house, or to get married for single people, whatever the reason might be, it does not make any difference whatsoever. Every single dollar that you own, and one complete year already passed in the month of Ramadan, as long as the money is yours, the money is accessible, you have an access to it, that money actually is to be included in your zakah calculation, regardless of the reason behind holding that money. Investment, saving, spending, it does not make any difference whatsoever. You sold your house last year and you have $500,000 cash available, but you are designating that fund to be spent to purchase a new house. One complete year already passed, okay, and you did not purchase a new house, right? That money, supposedly non-zakatable. But since you do have cash money, and that money stayed in your possession for one complete year, then it has to be included and not to be excluded. The second category actually is the business or the source of income that you have. If you are an employee or a professional, or otherwise you provide a professional service, you have your own practice, you work as a medical doctor, as an engineer, as a consultant, as an attorney, and you have your own business and you receive money periodically. If you work for others as an employee, as a professional, you are expected to receive a monthly check, right? Or otherwise every 2 weeks. Is that correct? Forget about the cash flow that you experience throughout the whole year long. You do not need to track how much money you received and how much money you spent. Forget about all that. Just receive the money, anfiq bil ma'roof, spend on yourself in a very reasonable way. Whatever spent is not to be worried about, as I already explained. And whatever is left over, is remaining, is available, accessible, owned by you in the zakat due date is to be counted. Likewise, if you have your own business, okay, you are a business, you have a professional service, attorney, for example. Most probably you receive money maybe every single week, once or even twice a week. Every other day you receive a payment from one of your customers or one of your clients. Again, forget about the cash flow. Okay, you don't have to track every single payment that you received. Okay, you don't have to find out whether or not you have any nisab throughout the whole year long, because actually the nisab is completely different discussion. Inshallah, I will be touching on it. So forget about the cash flow. Whatever is spent throughout the whole year long is spent already. Okay, we don't need to worry about it. Whatever is left over is available, accessible, saved, right, in your checking account. That is actually the amount that has to be included and not to be excluded. What if you have an actual real business? You are like a merchant, right? You have a grocery store, you have accessories store, whatever the business might be. Car dealership, for example. Every single item that is identified as a commodity or as a merchandise or as goods, whether inventory, whether display items, whether an actual item like on the shelves for sale, that is to be included and not to be excluded. Anything else that is not for sale, whatever machineries, whatever devices, whatever tools, whatever furniture, whatever software and hardware that you use to run your business, but those items are not for sale, then they are to be excluded. They are to be excluded. For example, you have a car dealership. All the cars that you have in your lot and the zakat due date are to be counted, even if some of them actually are just display items, as you see sometimes in some car dealerships, right? Maybe some of those cars are just inventory. They are not available, like exposed to the public or to the customers, for purchasing purposes, but they are yours, right? Then they have to be included. Likewise, if you have a grocery store, for example, every single item, whether it is a snack, whether it is soda, whether it is food or whatever, anything that is for sale is to be included and not to be excluded. Now a question here, how to determine the value of your business? How to determine the value of your business? Do not go with what is called what they call it, the invoice value. Invoice value or the book value means that how much you paid already to purchase those cars, okay? Because that amount might not reflect the actual real value of the car and the zakat due date, especially when it comes like to clothes or like different kind of businesses. A certain item might have a value 6 months ago, and now it has a different value after 6 months. It could be more, it could be less, it could be the same. So do not go with the invoice value or with the book value, which is how much you paid to purchase all these items. And do not go with the retail value or the listing price, how much you are asking for. Because again, that amount actually is just a listing price. You might receive it and you might not. You need to go with something called the wholesale market value. Wholesale market value means if you have a car dealership, just imagine that you do not have any car whatsoever in your lot in the zakat due date, right? Imagine that you do not have any car there. Well, what if you decide to go to the auction at that day and purchase all these cars that you already have in your lot? Okay, you have 25 cars parked in your lot. If they are not yours and you want to go today to the auction and purchase all of them, how much you are willing to pay for them wholesale? Let's say $250,000. That's the exact amount that you need to take into consideration for zakat al-mal. So do not go with the invoice value or the book value, how much you already paid. Do not go with the retail value, because actually the retail value of the car may be 15,000. But if you are to go to the auction and buy it today, right, as a car dealer, you're gonna buy it for only $10,000 or $11,000, right? So the wholesale market value of the car is only 11,000 and not 15,000. 15,000 is whatever you are asking for. Well, you might get that amount and you might not. So it's not fair for you to pay zakah on amount that you did not receive yet. While the wholesale market value actually is something that you really own. That is when it comes to actual real business. If you provide a service, as I said, like a professional service, you are just an engineer or a doctor or lawyer, whatever fees you charge, for your clients is to be included. Anything else, like in your iyad, in your office, in your hospital, in your office, in your business, is not to be included, because all those items, all those machineries and tools and devices and whatever you use are not for sale. So they are not technically urudu tijara, right? So whatever you generate is the money, is the zakatable one. What if you have rental properties? You do have an apartment or condominium or house that is for rent. It's not for sale. It's not your primary residence. It is for rent. Okay. The lease revenue, the money that you receive from that rental property is the zakatable one. Okay? You lease that apartment that you have for $2,000 a month. You're supposed to have $24,000 in the month of Ramadan after 1 year. Is that correct? But in the real life, you found out that you did not have any of those $24,000. Some of them have been like, paid for maintenance, for tax, for insurance, right? The tenant did not pay you in time, skipped, some payments. You took that money and you spent it in yourself, right? And the zakat due date, if there is no money coming from that apartment, then there is no money to worry about. So just move on, and you don't have to pay zakat on it. When it comes to properties or real estate, like houses, apartments, whatever, it depends, like zakatability-wise, it depends on your intention and your practice as well. Your intention and your practice. Okay, what does that mean? You live in a house, and this is your primary residence. As long as you are living in that house is zakat exempt. Even if it is, if like its market value is more than $1 million, it doesn't make any difference, right? This is not something for sale. This is a residential property. You live in it. After maybe 5-7 years, you change your mind. You move to a different, somewhere else. But you still actually own that house. You decided to put it for rent, not for sale, for rent. And you put that sign for rent. And that house stayed for 6, 7, 8 months, okay, vacant. No tenants, no customers. Then no zakah on it. Whenever it is occupied or rented, and you start generating and making money, you start paying zakah on whatever money that you receive, on the lease revenue, right? If you still have any money available coming from that rental property in the zakah due date. After 3, 4, 5 years, you change your mind. You said, you know what? It's not for rent, it is for sale. So you remove that sign and you put another sign for sale. And you put it active in the market, right? It is like posted in the website and you have an agent waiting for potential customers. As long as that house, the same house that you used to live in, as long as the house is for sale, then it is zakatable in full based on its market value. Because that house in this particular scenario became urud al-tijara, it is for sale. There is no difference between the house and the cars that you have in your lot, like if you are a car dealer, or in a snack or chips or asir or whatever, if you have a grocery store. As long as it is for sale, then it is zakatable in full based on its market value. So you can easily, see here that the same house in the first scenario was zakah exempt, and the second scenario, you pay zakah on the lease revenue, and then in the third scenario, you pay zakah on the market value. What if you put that house for sale for 1 complete year? And next Ramadan came, and the house is still actually waiting in the market. Do you have to pay zakah on it? Yes, you have to pay zakah. What for some reason that you kept it in the market, for sale, active in the market, and another 1 complete year for whatever reason might be, the house was not sold. Do you still have to pay zakah on its market value for the second time? The answer is yes. As long as it is active in the market, then it is zakatable. How about the long-term investment? Sometimes you decide to purchase a piece of land, right? And you just decide to sleep on it for 5, maybe 10, 15 years. It's not for sale. It is not for sale. It is a long-term investment. And your plan is to wait until the market value goes up, until your kids grow up, and whenever they decide to go to college or to school, you're going to spend on them. If that is the plan that you have in mind, and that property, that piece of land, is not active in the market for sale, then this is actually called long-term investment, and it is zakah exempt. You don't need to worry about paying zakah on it. How about investment in the stock market? Okay. There is a very simple concept here that we need to comprehend to be able to calculate zakah. Whatever accessible in the stock market is zakatable, as simple as that. Whatever accessible to you is zakatable. Now, if you have individual retirement account, it could be IRA, it could be Roth IRA, it could be regular IRA, it could be simple investment account, could be 529 for the education of your kids, could be AGMA account for the minors, could be a brokerage account, mutual fund, whatever, right? As long as you have an access to it, and it is active in the market, like a mutual fund, for example. Okay? Even if you think that you are not active in the market, well, the mutual fund company actually is acting on your behalf, right? They trade and they speculate, they buy and sell throughout the whole year long. That's why you make money in your mutual fund account. So that account actually is zakatable in full. Why? Because it is an investment, and you have full access to it. You have full access to it. Now, when it comes to employer-based retirement account, it's slightly different. You do not have full access to it. You have 401k, right? You have 403b if you work for education institute or you work for non-for-profit organization. You have pension plan if you work for the government, for the federal or state or the county. They offer you something called pension plan. You need to ask yourself a question. How much access I have to that account? 401k, you are not supposed to touch it. However, in the month of Ramadan, if you decide one day to apply for, sometimes they call it humanitarian case or hardship, right? Just imagine that there was a hardship and you applied. How much access you will be having to? Is it 50%, 40%, 70%? Whatever accessible actually is zakatable. Very simple example. The investment that you have in your 401k is $1 million straight. And if you decide to apply for hardship, right, or a humanitarian case, Fidelity or Vanguard gives you an access to 50% of your account, no more than 50%. So the accessible or the withdrawable amount is how much in our example? $500,000. Is that correct? If you decide to proceed, bear in mind that this is like a very theoretical calculation. You don't have to actually apply. It's just like on papers. You do some math to find out how much zakah you have to pay in your retirement account. If you decide to proceed, you will not be taking $500,000 like take home. You will be charged penalty, sometimes interest, sometimes processing fees, sometimes tax. Do the math. How much you have to pay or how much you will be charged, right, if you decide to proceed. Let's say in our example, $50,000 straight is the total deduction between tax and processing fees and whatever. So the net amount so far is $450,000. Now you have two options, either to be in the safe side and to pay zakah on those $450,000 in our example, based on 2.5%, which is like very simple to calculate. I know that some of those stocks belong to residential properties, belong to some commercial, businesses or industrial. I know that the 2.5% is not accurate enough, but actually it is safe enough to pay 2.5%. Just keep it simple, right? So you have two options, either to pay 2.5%, okay, on whatever net amount that you have, 450,000 our example, or if you want to go with the book, okay, and not to pay anything extra whatsoever on top of the zakah, you still can deduct another maybe 15 to 20% from those $450,000 usulun thabita, fixed assets, because those financial instruments or those stocks that you own or those shares do not represent commodities and merchandise 100%. Every single company does have its own, they call them fixed assets, right? Like properties and machineries and building and cars and transportation and software and tools and devices and so on and so forth. Roughly speaking, 15-20% is safe enough to deduct from the net amount, and you pay zakah on the rest based on 2.5%. And you do the same exercise every single year. Again, this is a very theoretical math. You don't have to actually physically withdraw the money. Just imagine that you decided to withdraw it. Why we are going with this imaginary exercise? Because one of the conditions for the zakatability of any money or any asset that you have is al-mulku tam raqabatan waidan, full ownership and full access, right? Full ownership actually is there. Your 401k, whether your contribution or the match of your employer, at the end of the day, whatever you have in your account is your money. Is that correct? Now, accessibility-wise, you do not have full access to it. It's not like your checking account. This is a retirement account. You are not supposed to touch it unless, la samahullah, in case of death or disability, or if you turn 60 or 65, whatever the retirement age in your state might be. Okay? So if you decide to withdraw before the maturity of that account, you are violating the spirit of the 401k. That's why you'll be penalized and charged maybe interest, sometimes processing fees, administration fees, tax, right? You pay tax on it. So do the math, and the net amount actually is the accessible, is the zakatable one. What if you do have some, like outside your 401k, outside any kind of employer-based investment or retirement account, okay? Now, what if you do have some investment in the stock market by your own, and you are so happy with the dividend that you make from those accounts? You are not that active in the market. Usually you do not buy and sell, and you watch the news, and sometimes you feel your blood pressure going up and down with the price of the stocks. You are not that person. Okay, you just put some stocks in the market, and you are happy with whatever dividend or profit that you make every year. Even if you buy and sell occasionally, then if that is your common practice, then you do not have to pay zakat, okay, on the book value or the market value of the stocks. You need to pay zakat on the dividend only. You need to pay zakat on the dividend, because those stocks are not urud tijara, they are not for sale, right? What if you change your mind and you became very active in the market, right? You started acting like a mutual fund company. Every single day you watch the news, you go to Yahoo Finance, and you watch those indexes, right? And you buy and you sell, and so on and so forth. If this is what you do usually, then yes, you have to pay zakat on everything that you have in your account, the stocks and their dividend as well. And this is actually regardless whether you liquidate the dividend, you take it like cash money and you put it in pocket, or otherwise you capitalize the dividend. You just keep it in the account and you purchase more items. It doesn't make any difference. Do the math and find out how much dividend you have made, right? And you pay zakah on it based on 2.5%. Of course, we do have some other categories, but they do not belong like directly to American Muslims. Like, for example, livestock, right? For example, they call it the agricultural products, right? I mean, all these different items are zakatable, but they are not that, relevant to us Muslims living in the United States. That's why I'm gonna just skip them. So those are what is called the zakatable items that you need to take into consideration. Anything else that is not for business purposes is to be excluded. The jewelry that your wife and your daughters use, as long as their value is within the average, right? Then they are zakat exempt. Okay? If the average in San Diego nowadays, like for that particular lady, like other peers in the same age and the same level of education, right? Let's say up to $30,000. So if a sister does have up to $30,000 worth of jewelry, right, that is zakat exempt. But if she has, let's say, $100,000 jewelry, well, that is way too much. The first 30,000 are zakat exempt, and the remaining actually are zakatable. This is to take into consideration the two different madhahib, okay, or contradicting madhahib, because one of them actually does mandate zakat on jewelry regardless, and the other one, excuses the jewelry from zakatul mal. Now, what is the standard here? Standard here is that anything that is not growable, that is not business, okay, you do not have it to make money out of it, is zakat exempt. And that's why the house that you live in is zakat exempt. The clothes that you have in your closet, even if you have way more than what you need. Of course, as a practicing Muslim, you are not supposed to lead an extravagant lifestyle. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. But the fact that you have more than what you need does not necessarily mean that the extra is zakatable. You need only 2 cars, right? And you have 5 cars, but all of them actually are for your personal use. Well, this is israf. But the extra 3 cars are not zakatable because they are not for business. So the house that you live in, and the furniture that you have, and the utensils that you have, and whatever food stored in the pantry, right? Even if you have like way more than what you need, everything that is not for business purposes is to be exempted. Even if you have more than one house here in San Diego and the other one maybe like overseas, right? If that house is not for rent, is not for sale, it's just locked, waiting for you whenever you decide to go vacation, maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year, If that is the case, then it is zakat exempt. You open that house and allow some of your needy, extended family members or relatives to live in it for free, right? You do not charge them for that. That house actually is still zakat exempt. Anything that is like publicly owned, it's not private property, is zakat exempt. Now, when it comes to business in particular, business people always ask about what is called the receivables and the payables. Receivables are the amounts that you are expected to receive from other people. You did not receive them yet, they are receivables, right? You have like someone on a payment plan. He pays you $500 every single month, right? In the month of Ramadan, he paid you, but he still actually owes you another maybe 2,000 or 3,000. Are you supposed to include those receivables in your zakat calculation? No, you don't have to. You just wait. Whatever is receivable for this year will be already received next year. So wait until you receive the money, and then the hawl actually passes already, which is the fiscal lunar year. And then if you still have that money, you pay zakat on it. If you did not receive it, forget about it. If you have received that money but you spend it already, forget about it. If you receive that money and you still have it in your possession, then that is the zakat one. That is the virtual pool of money, wi'a'u zakat, where you need to add up all these different items. So in the zakat due date, you find out how much money that you have, forget about whatever you have spent, right? And how much asset that you have in the stock market, and what is the market value of your business, right? And you deduct from that all the due debts, okay? You still owe the IRS a certain amount of money, okay? You put it aside, but you have to pay it. You cannot put it aside for calculation purposes, okay? Like to reduce the tax, the zakat money, and then you bring it back. That's wrong. If you decide to put it aside, then you have to pay it, right? Very good example here. Someone ended up having $200,000 cash money, and he owes the mortgage company. I'm not talking about mortgage haram or halal, that's a completely different discussion. And he owes the mortgage company $200,000. He said, well, we just break even. I have $200,000, and I owe the mortgage company $200,000. Well, this is absolutely incorrect. Incorrect. You owe the mortgage company only $2,000 or $3,000 a month. So you can deduct only $3,000 from that virtual pool of money because that amount is due, right? Those $200,000 that you are referring to are due within the next maybe 10 years. You cannot deduct the undue debt for the next 10 years. And if you want to go with this logic, then why do not you, using the same logic, why do not you include your potential income for the next 10 years in your zakah and pay zakah on it from now? So anything in the future actually is to be excluded, right? With one exception, you do have $200,000 and you owe the mortgage company $200,000. If you decide to pay off everything and you execute it, like you take the money and you just pay it to the mortgage company and get your clear title. If that is the case, then yes, you are zakah exempt. But you cannot say, okay, here is $2,000 aside, $200,000 aside, okay, that are like due to the mortgage company. So I have zero money, no zakah for this year. And then you bring that money back? No. Nice try, you cannot do that. You take the money out, you pay the money to the mortgage company. Is that clear? Likewise, if you owe other people money, same. If you put the money aside, then you have to pay it. If you want to skip that loan, which is a sin, by the way, like if you are financially competent and able to pay, okay, and you ignore paying off the loan, that's a sin by itself. But if you decide to do it and you put the money aside, okay, then you have to pay it. If you have a plan not to pay it back, like to pay off the loan, then you have to pay zakah. You have to pay zakah on it. And the zakah due date, after doing the math and deducting all what is to be deducted, okay, you put aside maybe $3,000 or $4,000 for your personal expenses, okay, like for the food, for the utility bills, for your transportation, for your health care, for whatever you owe. Put everything aside. If the remaining amount, net amount, after all that math that you already went through, if you still have around $5,000, then you have to pay zakatul mal. $5,000 actually is the threshold or the nisab. And nisab actually is the minimum amount of money, minimum. That if you have it or more, then you have to pay zakat. Where did we get the $5,000 from? It is 85 grams of gold. 85 grams of gold. If the 24 karat gold, a gram of gold, let's say is worth $50 nowadays, 50 times 85, that's 400 to $1,050. It should be way more than $50 nowadays. Anyway, in the zakat due date, you need to find out, because actually the value of the gold fluctuates. It goes up and down, right? So you need to find out how much you have to pay if you decide to buy 85 grams of pure gold, like 24 karat. Okay? If the amount is 5,000, then that's the nisab for that particular year. Next year, believe it or not, the nisab might be way less or way more. So every single year, you need to do the same, the same exercise. If you still have a nisab, which is most probably $5,000, then you have to pay zakat. Some people mistakenly think that if they do have $15,000 net amount, they exclude the nisab, the 5,000, and they pay zakat on whatever is on top of it. Well, that's wrong. And nisab actually is not to be excluded. And nisab actually is a kind of standard or measurement that if you have it or more, then everything is to be included. So if you have 15,000, then you have to pay zakat on the 15,000, not on the 10,000 only, right? So this is actually how to calculate zakat al-mal. If you decide to pay your zakat in the month of Ramadan, then your zakat rate should be 2.5%. If you decide to pay your zakat in the month of December, right, for maybe tax purposes, filing, whatever, then your zakat rate should be 2.575. Where did we get it from? 10 days difference between the Gregorian calendar versus the lunar calendar. Every single Gregorian year does have 10 days more than the Gregorian one, 365 versus 355, the lunar one. So the default is that we go with the lunar calendar. Like when it comes to Siyam, when it comes to Hajj, for example. يسألونك عن الأهلة قل هي مواقيت للناس والحج. So the mawaqit actually are to be connected with the lunar calendar, not with the Gregorian one. However, okay, if you decide to go with the Gregorian one, no big deal, but you need to adjust the zakat rate. And please do me a favor, do not make it 2.575, make it 3%. Just be on the safe side and pay more. I mean, just to make sure that you have a peace of mind and that you pay zakat al-mal. Now, you did your math, and you found out that, oh, I have to pay $7,000 on behalf of my 401k, but I do not have cash money. Well, you have two options. Either to wait until you get that cash money from anywhere, and you do not have to liquidate that money from the same account, because actually you are the owner of that money, and you do have some other sources of income. So if you do have some saving here, and your 401k zakat money is $7,000, can you pay from this amount on behalf of this amount? Yes. At the end of the day, all these different accounts or amounts belong to whom? To you. And you have your own dhimma maliyya mustaqilla, like a financial responsibility or financial status. So you pay on your behalf from whatever source of income that you have. I mean, no big deal. However, my advice, do not wait until you get cash to pay, because it's going to build up. It's going to accumulate. If you failed in paying your zakat for this year, and next year you still have to pay another 7,000, that's 14,000. So it's going to the case will be even worse. So my advice, go ahead and just liquidate or sell some of the assets that you have in your retirement account and pay your zakat. Keep your records clear with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on an annual basis. And actually you are doing yourself a favor, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. It is the tahara and a zakah for your soul and for your money, okay, and for your family members, way before that you benefit the zakah recipients. Now, you did your math, and you ended up having $7,000 zakat money, okay, and you put it aside. How to pay that amount? Can you transfer your zakah overseas? Yes, you can. Can you keep your zakah inside the USA? Yes, you can. My advice actually is to strike a balance. You live in the USA and you have a lot of Islamic organizations and institutes and schools and colleges and civil rights organizations. They deserve your financial support, right? And you still have some family members and some needy individuals back home that you need to take care of. So try to strike a balance, okay, between sending overseas and keeping the money here. When you decide to send your money overseas, you need to be extra careful. Make sure that you send the money through the right organizations. Do not send it to individuals, right? I mean, this is a homeland security issue. You need to be extra careful and make sure that you send the money someone that is trustworthy enough. Otherwise, you might actually be held liable for an action that you did not mean to do it in a bad way, but actually you have done something wrong. And you know very well what I'm referring to. So be extra careful. Okay, we have a lot of, alhamdulillah, registered, certified Islamic organizations. They do have their own channels on how to reach, out overseas and to give certain individuals there or certain organizations. Make sure that you give them your zakah and just be in the safe side. So you can transfer your zakah overseas and you can keep it here. You need to go with the ayah. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم etc. You start with the needy individuals. It makes no sense whatsoever that you donate or you give your zakatul mal to guidance college, okay, in full, while you do have some needy individuals in your community waiting for your zakah. They are desperately need for money. You start with those individuals first. So you start with the local needy individuals, okay? And you might be surprised that some of the community members who attend your masjid, your congregation, your community, okay, are in need for that money. And you need actually to find out who is in need and to give them zakah. So you start with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started with. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين. The very common question that we receive is, can I pay zakatul mal to sponsor or to support my local masjid? The answer actually is yes, you can. Under the category fi sabilillah, you can pay zakatul mal to build a masjid. You can pay zakatul mal to expand the masjid. You can pay zakatul mal to cover the overhead expenses of the masjid. And this is actually the exception and not the default. This is the exception, not the default. The default is that masajid are to be taken care of by the Muslim government. If you are back home in Pakistan or in Algeria or in Saudi Arabia, there's Wazarat al-Awqaf, the Ministry of Islamic Affairs. They have their own budget and they have their own manpower. They can take care of the masajid. It's not the case for Muslims living in the US. This masjid actually was built from zakatul mal, from the sadaqah and the donation of the Muslim community. Okay? And likewise, like other Islamic organizations. So rest assured that paying zakatul mal to sponsor the Islamic work in the USA is valid and counted. If you trust that Islamic organization, ISNA, ICNA, مش عارف, MAS, whatever organization, you trust the leadership of that organization, and you think that they are doing a good job, they are serving Islam and Muslims in this society, right? And they are asking for zakatul mal. So how many conditions? 3. You believe that this organization is doing a good job. They are servicing the Muslim community, right? And you trust the leadership, people who will be receiving that money. You know that those people are God-fearing and trustworthy individuals. And they are asking for zakatul mal, then you can go ahead and pay zakatul mal. Personally, I do pay zakat to all most of the Muslim organizations. Between ISNA, between ICNA, between MAS, between MLFA, I pay zakat to my local masjid, I pay zakat to guidance college, I pay zakat to Islamic schools. I do believe that all those organizations deserve my financial support. Of course, at the end of the day, it is your call. Can you pay zakatul mal under the category fi sabilillah, for the cause of Allah, to sponsor a project, an Islamic school? Yes, you can. A university, a college, a masjid, whatever the Islamic organization might be, within those 3 different conditions, yes, you can pay zakatul mal. I know that this is a very detailed topic and it's going to take us forever if we continue, but what I presented, I think, is a very brief summary that helps us comprehending the concept of zakah, and maybe opening your appetite to ask questions. So I'm going to just limit myself to what I said, and I will open the floor for the Sheikh, inshallah, to take it from here. Yeah.
Let's, if we can go with one question from the floor, if there is any, and another question
Sure.
from online. Yeah, from the
So we talk about being
Exactly.
From what I've read, the income on the capital asset, you pay 2.5%, like you said. On income, I've read about 10% on income. I know that's they have when you read
I know.
stuff, it's like 10% on land that is irrigated naturally and things like that. So, do you pay at the same rate on dividend?
No, no. I do not see actually any reason behind using that analogy, right? Money is money. Agricultural products are completely different. So there is no need like to use some logic and some analogy to analyze like something to something else. I have read them, you know, this opinion has been mentioned by Sheikh Al-Qaradawi rahmatullah alayhi in his Fiqh al-Zakat, you know, well-known book. I do appreciate this opinion, but I completely disagree with it. Yeah, profit 2.5%. Forget about 10%.
Can I ask you a question? On 401ks, etc. You have, say, $500,000 in 401k. You pay zakat on it. And I understand, you exclude the tax portion, the penalty if you have to withdraw it.
Right.
You make that calculation, you pay zakat on that. What happens when next year the market falls? Then you pay on the lower amount? Because I've had someone who's quite knowledgeable say you pay on the increase in the value of that asset. So if you had $500,000 and if it increases to 600,000, you pay zakat on that additional 100,000.
I disagree. Yeah, as long as you have an access to that account, then you have to pay zakat on it on an annual basis. What if you have cash money? Let me just ask you this. What if you have an actual cash money, $500,000, and you pay zakat on them for the year of 1443, and then 1444 lunar calendar, or 2021, and you still have that money? Do you have to pay zakat on it again? Yes. This is the only category where you have to keep paying zakat on it on an annual basis. Unlike, for example, agricultural products. Agricultural products, you have some harvest, some wheat from like 2021, and you paid zakat on it, and you kept that wheat actually stored in your storage. Do you still have to pay zakat on it again? No, you don't have to, because this is not a growable asset. It's just one time. What if you have cattle, like livestock? Well, this is a growable asset. You pay zakat on it every single year. So the stocks that you have are growable assets, right? Regardless of the fluctuation, unless the decrease in their value went significantly way below the nisab, and this is the only will that you have. I mean, that's completely different story.
On the 401k, you mentioned that if you don't have money to pay on the 401k because you cannot take the money out.
Right.
As long as you have money on the outside, you can use that money to pay the card on the 401k.
Right.
What if you didn't have the money? You say, let's say you owe $25,000 on zakat, and you really don't want to take it out because of the penalty and taxes. So you take the 25,000, establish a completely separate account. Say from one IRA to another IRA, because you're not able to extract that money without paying huge amounts of taxes and penalties. You put it in a segregated account, with that account having all charitable institutions, masjid, etc. as beneficiaries. So even if you die, that money is never going to come back to you. It's already designated for beneficiaries that are Islamic beneficiaries.
If the ownership actually is transferred from your good self to a certain foundation or charity organization that you own and you are the trustee, but it is well known for your legal heirs, for your family members, that Allah forbid, if something happened to me, the money that I have in my charitable trust or my foundation is not my money. This is zakat money. But you did what you did actually to keep the tax to the minimum. I mean, this is a very 100% legal, tax reduction technique, right? Which is fine. Everybody does it, including Barack Obama, including Trump. Everybody does the same.
Trying to navigate with the U.S. tax system, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right. So, but one thing that you mentioned, if you transfer it, the ownership still
Hmm.
So, but it technically is still in your name.
Well, if it is, I mean, if you communicate it clearly to your family members that if something happened to me, whatever XYZ amount that I have in such and such account is not my money. I just open a new account like for tax, reduction purposes. That would be fine. That'd be fine.
There is a question. It says, can zakat be used to pay off parents' debt or sibling debt, or to be used to pay parents' rent? My parents have debts. Can I use my zakat to pay my parents' debt or my siblings' debt?
Well, basically, you are not supposed to give zakatul mal to your ascendants and your descendants. So your parents and your grandparents are not eligible zakat recipients for you. Your children and grandchildren are not eligible zakat recipients because of the nafaqa, because of the like a mutual sponsorship responsibility between those different generations. So the usul and the furu' are not eligible zakat recipients. Now the hawashi, the siblings, are eligible zakat recipients. So you can confidently pay zakatul mal to your siblings, like your brothers, your sisters. And of course, it goes without saying your paternal uncle, your maternal uncle, your paternal aunt, your maternal aunt, and like all the extended family members, you can pay zakat to them. The matter of fact, it is sadaqatun wasila. Like your reward will be doubled because this is silatu rahim, having good relationship with your family members and your relatives, and it is a sadaqah at the same time. Now back to the question. If my dad actually is in debt, and that debt actually has nothing to do with his personal expenses, which means that, I do sponsor my father, for example, but there was a debt, that's related to his business, something else that is irrelevant to me sponsoring him. Can I give him zakatul mal as a gharim, as like a borrower or in debt individual? Yes, because al-gharimin, people in debt or debt-ridden individuals, those who cannot afford paying off their debts, those are actually one of the categories of the zakah according to the Quran. So I give him the money as a debt-ridden individual, not as a dad or as a father. And when it comes to siblings, brothers and sisters, I mean, it's way easier. But the problem here is when you pay the debt on behalf of your dad. Okay, again, if there was a shortcoming from that son, he did not sponsor his dad accordingly. And in order for his dad, to survive and to get what he needs, he borrowed $5,000 for utility bills, for food, for drink, for transportation. Then you cannot give him zakah because that was your responsibility that you did not fulfill to start with. Very good example. You get married. I mean, not you, like somebody else. Somebody else gets married with a woman who just finished her school, right? And she owes, let's say, $40,000 or $50,000. They call it a student loan. Student loan, right? Can he pay zakatul mal on behalf of his wife to pay off the student loan? The answer is yes. Why? Because that loan actually is irrelevant to his responsibility toward her financially, right? They got married and she brought that loan, that debt with her, or the indebtedness, al-madyuniyya, right? So can he pay zakah on her behalf to pay off that student loan? The answer is yes. But she is not a wife, or she is not paid as a wife in this case. She is paid as an indebted individual. In the same way that he can pay the debt on behalf of somebody else, well, let him start with his wife, and so on and so forth. نعم. Right. No. No. Well, even if you want to go with with the literal understanding of fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah akhi, does not mean actual physical military jihad by default. It does not. It means for the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal. And even if you want to go with the understanding that fi sabilillah means jihad, well, the Prophet ﷺ is the one who said, "Jahidu al-mushrikina bi-amwalikum wa anfusikum wa alsinatikum." Apply jihad against the enemies of Islam, physically, financially, and through education. So even if you insist that fi sabilillah means jihad, jihad actually has different categories. Jihad by education, like when you educate the community, right? Jihad could be physical one, jihad could be financial one. Okay, anfiqu fi sabilillah, right? Anfiqu fi sabilillah. This actually, definition is inaccurate, because the Quran itself says, for example, يجاهدون في سبيل الله, right? If you want to remove fi sabilillah and put jihad, يجاهدون في الجهاد, it makes no sense. يجاهدون في سبيل الله. Now you say that fi sabilillah means jihad. So does this mean يجاهدون في الجهاد? This is actually incorrect. This is like from one perspective. From the other one, Prophet ﷺ himself, when someone brought a camel that he wanted to put it في سبيل الله, قال ضعه في الحج فإن الحج في سبيل الله. You can designate that camel, okay, for those who do not have transportation to go for Hajj. فإن الحج في سبيل الله. As Hajj actually is for the cause of Allah. And based on that, akhi, the contemporary fiqh councils are almost unanimous now. Okay, even the Fiqh Council of the Muslim World League, who issued a fatwa 40 plus years ago, that fi sabilillah could be interpreted otherwise. Okay, our Fiqh Council, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, we followed that fatwa. The other Fiqh Council, the European Council for Fatwa and Research, they confirmed the same understanding, that fi sabilillah does not have to be like literally for the physical or military jihad activities. Because the main reason behind applying jihad is to support the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, or to establish the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. If the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal is established somewhere, somehow, by building masajid, by educating the new generation, right, empowering them with Islamic knowledge, then the outcome result of the jihad actually is achieved through education. You see? I mean, that's the philosophy behind it. That is correct, and that's why I said in my presentation, this is the exception, another default. The default is that masajid actually is to be taken care either from the sadaqah or otherwise by the Muslim government. But here actually there is no Muslim government. This is a very secular society. Even the churches around, even the synagogues around, are built from the support of the community members of that faith, right? Like from Christians or Jews. And likewise, Muslims cannot proceed here without paying zakat al-mal to establish more institutes and to support them financially.
Question: if someone owes me money and he's unable to pay and he's actually poor, can I give him my zakat to repay me? What if that amount is larger than the zakat, the zakat that I can give him?
طيب, let me keep it simple, akhi. Waiving the borrower from paying off the loan could be counted as zakah, right? Someone owes me 5,000, and I know for a fact that he's an eligible zakah recipient. He is gharim, and if he stays for years and years, he will never be able to pay me back those 5,000. And I found out that my zakah for this year is 5,000. Can I tell him, you know what? Just forget about the 5,000. That inshallah will be counted. It's not the mainstream fatwa, but actually it is a very valid opinion. And I changed my mind a few years ago. I'm now going with this approach, right? And the evidence for, well, I mean, it is the fatwa of Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani, I think, and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and some other people from the Salaf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, subhanallah. فنظرة إلى ميسرة. إيش أول الآية؟ نعم. وإن كان ذو عسرة. نعم. وأن تصدقوا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. Right? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who called, like waiving the loan, he called it sadaqah. And in آية الزكاة he said إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين. عرفت؟ فwaiving, like waiving the borrower from paying as long as he like is eligible zakat recipient under the category of al-gharimin will be fine, inshallah. It will be counted as zakah. No. As long as it is reasonable, within the average, within the mainstream, then there is nothing wrong with that. Because actually, al-amiluna alayha, like people who are like the zakah workers, they deserve money from the zakah itself. إنما صدقات الفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها. So those people actually who collect zakah, at the end of the day, I mean, they do have some bills and that they need to take care of. So as long as they are reasonable, right? What is reasonable here in the US, I mean, to my knowledge, maybe 15%, 20%, that would be fine. Yeah.
There's a question about 401k. I believe you included in your presentation. You already answered this question. Another question, some stores offer annual membership and sell products in a discounted price like Costco. Is it allowed in Islam to buy from these stores? Is it not like gambling? And then he continues here, or she continues, the amount of benefit we get in return for that annual membership fee, $60, is ambiguous, isn't it?
That's way from zakah, but that's fine. I mean, we'll answer it. Well, the membership fees actually has nothing to do with riba. I mean, this is the structure of the business. You cannot go to Costco or to Sam's Club without being a member, right? Sometimes, I mean, you pay for the membership and you spend the whole year long without even going there, but you still have an access in there. So paying for the membership has nothing to do with riba. You can be a member and pay that $100 and you go there, right? There is no connection between the membership fees and riba. I do not see any issue with it. Yeah.
As a practical matter, when you say Ramadan starts, zakat, as a practical matter, is it wrong if you take your monthly, if you take your assets at the end of the year? Because you normally get statements, monthly statements, etc. At the end of the year, you figure out what are your assets, what your income is, etc. And you say, okay, here is what my assets are, and I calculate my zakat, and start paying the zakat instead of paying at one time over the entire year, because different organizations, keep needing money at different times. So instead of just doling out the whole zakat money at one time, you say, okay, here is my zakat due, is $25,000 for the whole year, and you start doling it out over the year.
Prepayment of zakah is valid as long as you have an intention that whatever you pay throughout the whole year long is counted against your zakah, and as long as you are giving that zakah money to an eligible zakah recipient.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about prepayment. I'm talking about following the end of the year. So
Like you make an installment from the zakah due date on.
yeah, so let's say 2022 has ended, right?
Right.
You calculate your 2022 zakat based upon your assets at the end of the year.
Right.
So you say that, okay, there's 25,000 due for the year 2022. Now I start paying zakat over the year 2023 for 2023.
You can if there is a legitimate reason behind that. You do not want to give a needy individual too much money, and you want to break it down to monthly payment. You want to give your masjid, for example, monthly payment. As long as that money is segregated and well known for your family members that this is my zakah money. If something happened to me, do not touch the money. This is zakah money, it has to be paid. Okay? And you see any kind of maslaha or benefit or advantage of paying in installment, not just paying total amount to one individual at once. Okay? You want to just make it like you divide it to two different payments, to different organizations, that would be fine. What I prefer and advise is to prepay your zakah. Like you start paying your zakah of 2003 from now. عرفت? You know like approximately that your zakah will be $25,000. Well, your monthly payment should be around 2,000 plus. Okay? You can prepay from now, okay, with two conditions. With the intention that whatever I'm paying, that's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That this is my zakah, and to make sure you do your due diligence to make sure that you pay that money to eligible zakah recipients. Okay, you pay your zakah to the masjid, to the school, to or whatever, that will be fine. Toward the end of the year, you do your math, right? If you find out that my zakah is, yes, as expected, 25,000, and I paid only 24, you pay the difference. I paid 27, you have two options. Either to count those extra $2,000 as sadaqah and donation, or maybe you can give yourself a credit from the zakah of the next year, whatever you prefer.
There's a question here. Can I pay my zakat in monthly installments?
Yeah, the same issue, yes. I mean, yes, you can if there is a maslaha behind that. Like, for example, your zakah is only 5,000, and you know someone, okay, trustworthy, eligible zakah recipient, and he needs 5,000. You know that he's mature enough to spend the money wisely and not wastefully. Why you like make an installment? Well, give him just the 5,000. Again, يعني, there is no one size fits all. It has to be taken case by case basis.
I have two questions, but they're related to each other. One is like, first one is like, is it halal to buy stocks or like fidelity account or like Tesla stocks or like Amazon stocks? Second one, let's say somebody had started an investment like 7 months ago, buying stocks. It started like, let's say, $20,000. But the current value of them now is like 15, so they lost their book value. Like how you can pay zakat for those if it's halal?
Investing in the stock market is permissible as long as you are picking and choosing the right financial instruments. They have to be stocks, not bonds or derivatives or futures or options. They have to belong to halal business, and you have to make sure that the debt asset ratio is to the minimum, and that the interest bearing investment is to the minimum, and the actual interest generated is to the minimum, right? Not every single stock belongs to halal business. That means that stock is halal by default. Sometimes, I mean, like certain issues might affect the permissibility of dealing with that particular stock. And if you do not have enough experience, maybe you can consult with any of those mutual, like Muslim-owned mutual fund companies. Or if you want, for example, to check a certain stock, you can go to atina.co, atina, A-A-T-I-N-A-A.co, and just enter the code of the stock, and the system, actually the website, will generate an automatic report to show you, I mean, how Sharia compliant this stock might be. Now the second question is about the value. Well, you just go with what you already explained. Are you trading actively throughout the year, or you are just happy with the dividend that you make? If you are actively trading, then you need to pay zakah on everything, on the market value and on the dividend. But if you are inactive and you just have stocks for dividend purposes, you just pay zakah on the dividend only. So it depends. Excuse me. It depends on your practice.
Last Ramadan, I had in the checking account $100,000, which I paid zakat on. This coming Ramadan, it might be, he's expecting to have $150,000. Do I pay zakat on 150 or 50 increase in account?
No, you pay zakah on 150. You have to keep paying zakah every single year, even if you have to pay on the same amount. As long as you have access to that money, it is your money accessible, it is zakatable actually. نكتفي بهذا القدر.
I meant like he started with like 20,000, but he ended with like 10,000 at the end of the year. He paid the zakat for the 10,000 at the end of the year, or the?
It depends, أخي. إذا كان نعم. If he is active in the market, then yes, he has to pay zakah on the 10,000. If he is inactive and those stocks that their value is 10,000 did not generate any dividend or profit, then there is no zakah. So it depends on his practice.
The last question: are there zakat experts calculate zakat for you because it's rather too complicated to me.
Well, there is a link that I sent to you, and if this brother or sister like needs further help, they can just email me, and I will see if I can help them, inshallah.
طيب. Let me just check here. There is nothing.
طيب الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله على محمد.
Jazakallah khair. On your behalf, I would like to say Jazakallah khair, Dr. Alqudah, for benefiting us from this knowledge about az-zakah. Jazakumullah khair, whether you are here in person or you are behind the screen. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.